5 years had slipped by since my divorce, and at 43, I found myself in the solitude of my own bed, each night a reminder of the years spent alone. That Tuesday night remains etched in my memory, a moment I will never forget. As I reclined in bed, the weariness enveloping me resembled a thick, suffocating blanket. The house was enveloped in silence, as it always was. Yet, on this occasion, the tranquil hush was fleeting. A gentle knock echoed at the door, tentative and uncertain. I blinked awake and propped myself up. In the shadows of the room, an unsettling sensation lingered in the air. "Is that you, Adrian?" I shouted into the void. "Mom," came my son's voice, a soft murmur in the shadows. The door groaned as it swung open, and Adrian entered the room. He appeared hesitant in his pajamas, yet those were no longer the garments of a child. They were the possessions of a 22-year-old man. The look on his face ignited a fierce protective instinct within me, while simultaneously stirring a sense of unease. "I can't sleep," he finally confessed, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Come here," I beckoned, gesturing to the vacant space beside me on the bed. After a brief pause, he made his way over and nestled beneath the blanket. The bed emitted a soft creak under his weight. In that moment, we found ourselves lying side by side, mere inches separating our bodies. The warmth radiating from Adrian was instantly apparent. I made an effort to avert my gaze, yet from the periphery, it was undeniable that he had shed the innocence of childhood. He had matured into a young man. His features had taken on a sharper edge, his shoulders had expanded, and the awareness of this left me feeling both embarrassed and bewildered. "Mom," he whispered, his gaze directed at me. At times, an overwhelming sense of solitude envelops me within these walls. His voice held such fragility that I found myself unable to reply. Instead, I extended my hand and gently rested it on his shoulder. In that instant, without a moment's pause, he pivoted toward me and enveloped me in a warm embrace. I was taken aback by the intensity of his embrace. His arms encircled me completely, his face hovering near my neck. His heartbeat resonated within me. His breath flowed warm and steady, yet what truly astonished me was the way I instinctively mirrored that warmth in my own response. As I embraced him in return, an unfamiliar flutter ignited within my chest. Adrian's face inched nearer to my neck, his breath a whisper against my skin. "At times, it feels as though it's simply overwhelming," he murmured softly. "I am present," I murmured. "I am ever present." Yet within, I felt a disquiet. My heart raced, and I found myself unable to comprehend why this warmth enveloped me so completely. Adrian's actions carried a certain innocence, undeniably, yet his embrace was more enveloping than I had envisioned, his warmth more immediate than I had foreseen. "Thank you, Mom," he whispered softly. With his eyes shut, at last, his breath began to steady. He had drifted into slumber, yet I remained wide awake. As I reclined in silence, a singular question whirled endlessly through my thoughts. What on earth just transpired this evening? The embrace from Adrian held an unsettling intimacy that lingered in the air, leaving me unable to simply dismiss it. As dawn broke, Adrian remained peacefully slumbering beside me. The initial beams of dawn illuminated his visage. My gaze remained fixed upon him. He still appeared untouched by the world, yet within me, a storm of confusion raged. I reclined against the pillow, inhaling deeply. I required some moments to unravel the meaning behind last night's events. Yet, one thing remained certain: this was no ordinary night. The dawn broke. The sunlight gently infiltrated my room, gradually rousing me from slumber. In that instant, it dawned on me that I was still burdened by the tumult of emotions that had enveloped me throughout the night. Adrian remained, lost in the depths of slumber. With deliberate steps, I rose from my slumber and made my way to the kitchen. I craved a moment of solitude, a chance to create something quietly, ensuring he remained undisturbed. Adrian typically rose late each morning, yet today, an urgent need stirred within me, compelling me to quell the unease that had taken root inside. As I grappled with the remnants of the previous night, I began to assemble the ingredients for pancakes. Moments later, Adrian started to awaken. I caught a fleeting sight of him, his figure partially concealed behind the door, eyes still heavy with sleep. "Morning," he said, yet an unusual quality lingered in his voice. He spoke with a weariness that hinted at caution. "Good morning, darling," I said, gazing at him. I endeavored to maintain a facade of normalcy. As I turned the pancakes, I sensed Adrian's eyes upon me. His gaze held a certain quality that felt distinctly unusual. His demeanor bore a hint of warmth that was rarely present. It felt as though he was observing my every action, meticulously noting each small detail of my behavior. I stirred slowly, enveloped in warmth, yet a growing unease began to unfurl within me. Adrian's gaze, reminiscent of the previous night, was fixed on me once more this morning, yet this time, an unusual intensity flickered within them. I observed it. His gaze wasn't merely fixed on me, it was probing, searching every detail of my being. Their fingers glided along the contours of my form, and I was acutely aware of their touch. For a fleeting moment, I attempted to dismiss his gaze, yet I could feel that he had noticed my discomfort. Deep within, I sensed my heart beginning to race, yet I exerted effort to maintain my composure, to present the facade that all was perfectly ordinary. Adrian's demeanor had transformed as well. Typically, he exuded a relaxed, serene, and joyful demeanor around me, yet this morning, an unsettling distance lingered. Between us? He had drawn a line, yet it seemed as though he was seeking the bravery to cautiously step over it. His eyes, illuminated by the morning light, seemed to convey a message, yet I found myself unable to decipher it. With careful hands, I arranged the pancakes on a plate and offered it to him. "Enjoy," I remarked, my tone tinged with a hint of melancholy. As Adrian lifted the plate, his fingers clasped it for just an instant, and our gazes intertwined in a brief exchange. Once more, it seemed as though he was attempting to uncover something profound within me. The anxious glimmer in my eyes caught my attention, yet Adrian remained silent. He settled into his chair at the table. During breakfast, he never met my gaze directly, yet each time I shifted, his eyes would drift from the ceiling, returning to me with an unmistakable intensity. He seemed acutely attuned to every little action I took. This was an encounter unlike any we had faced previously. The tempest within me intensified. A voice deep within urged, "It's time to unravel this mystery now." Yet, I found myself grappling with a lingering uncertainty about what this truly was. Adrian's glances and behavior wove a tapestry of deep emotional confusion within me. In the kitchen, enveloped by the comforting aroma of pancakes, an unusual tension hung in the air. A restless sensation brewed within me, yet I held it at bay. Though I felt Adrian's gaze upon me, my sole focus was to fulfill my role as a mother. This morning was meant to revolve around breakfast, yet the warmth and unease flowing through me as the sunlight filtered in felt like something altogether distinct. As night drew near, a heaviness settled upon my eyelids, beckoning me toward slumber. A certain unease lingered in the air. A sensation washed over me, elusive and undefined, leaving me to ponder its true nature. As the night deepened, the solitude in my room became more palpable, yet this time, an undeniable change lingered. In the air, Adrian's demeanor towards me appeared to be transforming into something entirely different. As I gradually succumbed to slumber, I noticed myself intermittently fluttering my eyes open and shut throughout the night. A sensation stirred within me, an impending presence, yet its nature eluded my understanding. Out of nowhere, a sound pierced the silence. My eyes slowly opened, revealing the world around me. In the dimly lit room, a shadow crept forward, its movements deliberate and slow. A quiver of unease surged within me, catching me off guard. For a fleeting moment, the world around me faded into a haze, but clarity struck as I recognized that the shadow belonged to Adrian. He entered the room through the door that was ajar. My eyes flew open, and my heart raced with fervor. In the stillness of the night, my son found his way into my room. Even though I was aware that slumber was expected of me, Adrian's eyes shimmered in the shadows with a fervor that echoed the previous night. For a fleeting instant, I endeavored to steady my gaze. What was I meant to do? The turmoil within me intensified, echoing in my mind. Adrian's presence in my room at this hour was peculiar, yet it resonated like a distant echo. This time, however, it was unlike any other. His eyes, his demeanor, the way he approached me, everything held significance. Adrian advanced another step. He edged nearer, and in the dim glow of the sole remaining light, the moonlight, I caught a clearer glimpse of his face. His eyes held a resolve I had never witnessed before. Deep within, a voice cried out to me. Refrain. Cease this at once. In that instant, Adrian drew closer, his lips meeting mine with an unexpected intensity. In a fleeting moment, everything changed. In that fleeting instant, time stood still. Time seemed to freeze. In that moment, it seemed as though the entire universe was whirling around me. Yet I remained utterly still. My son, merely a heartbeat away. As his lips brushed against mine, a whirlwind of emotions intertwined within me. This was not an expectation a mother holds for her child. In that instant, it felt as if my heart had begun to race uncontrollably. I swiftly recoiled and attempted to shove him away. Halt, I implored, my voice trembling with urgency. My words appeared to dissolve into the atmosphere, akin to a fleeting whisper. Adrian withdrew, a glimmer of what appeared to be disappointment lingering in his gaze. Yet he remained there, towering, within the confines of the room. Adrian, this doesn't seem correct. Please refrain from this action. My voice quivered, my mind whirled, and my skin glistened with perspiration. The emotions within me surged uncontrollably as my son drew near in that manner. What a terrifying and complicated experience it was. Yet, I couldn't ignore the attention, the unwavering focus he directed towards me. Yet, this felt all wrong. Must I be a mother for all eternity, then? The profound intensity in my son's eyes, a look I had never encountered before, stirred something deep within me. My heart raced with such intensity that it seemed on the verge of exploding, yet I understood the necessity of regaining my composure. Adrian stepped back, pausing for a moment. He stood in silence, not uttering a single word, yet the stillness deepened within the enveloping darkness. Adrian stepped nearer, his lips brushing against mine once more, his hands gliding down from my neck to my waist, and then to my hips. Despite my best efforts to convince myself otherwise, I found myself unable to resist. That night, whatever transpired, had transpired. As dawn broke, I found myself grappling with the remnants of the night, seeking clarity on the events that had unfolded. Adrian was absent from my side, leaving me solitary in the room. I inhaled deeply, striving to regain my composure. Silently, I departed the house, leaving behind an unspoken farewell. My eyes reflected a profound weariness, while my chest echoed with a hollow emptiness. Each step weighed upon me, as if I were adrift in a vast expanse of uncertainty. In the midst of my internal struggle, one truth stood clear: I had to unravel the mystery of what had transpired. I found myself grappling with my emotions, yet with every fleeting moment, the situation appeared increasingly intricate. That night, whatever transpired, had transpired. By morning, everything seemed like a dream, so intricately woven. With aching eyes and a racing heart, I stepped out of the house in silence. I made an effort to conceal the events that transpired between Adrian and myself. In my quest for clarity, I resolved to stifle every feeling, to wipe the slate clean. Yet, a fracture within me was beginning to form. I found myself in a state of introspection. What was it that left me feeling so bewildered? In the midst of this chaos, I felt utterly adrift. My son, had transcended the bounds of childhood. Yet, was I still perceiving him through the lens of childhood? Had I been deceiving myself? What course of action should I take? Questions swirled endlessly in my mind,